Hi, I'm Paige Apgar, Eden Energy Medicine Advanced Practitioner, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about cords. These are energetic cords that will show up in your energy system and can really have a big effect on the life that you create and the life that you're living, the situations that you find yourself in, particularly any situations that feel like they're a little bit stuck, like you're kind of repeating the same pattern over and over, or you can't quite break through something. And then I'm going to tell you, after I've talked about them a bit, what kinds of things you can do to help you release yourself from some of these past attachments. So, to begin with, what are cords? Well, cords are literally what they sound like. They're energetic ties, and they tie us back to all kinds of things. So you can have cords that are related to issues and people in this lifetime or to past lives. So let's start by talking about cords in this lifetime. So if you have cords in this lifetime, a lot of times they're going to be related to people. That's the most common one, particularly past relationships. I mean, this is one a lot of people know about and have had some experience with. They feel like they've really just got to cut that cord to so-and-so, and really there can literally energetically be a cord there. And that it is the kind of thing that will make you feel like the emotions around that situation are still kind of fresh. It can be years and years after a relationship of whichever type, and it could just be a friendship, has ended, but the emotions are still there, and it can still feel like it was just yesterday. So that could be a situation where there's a cord. You can also have cords that connect you to periods of life, difficult circumstances that you've gone through, to traumas, traumatic events. And essentially, what these cords are doing is they're keeping us from moving forward. They're keeping us from really achieving our full growth potential. So it's always good to cut these things and to get rid of them. They tend to connect at chakras, or they always seem to connect at chakras. I haven't found any so far that haven't. And I want to make a note that everything I'm talking about is from my own personal experience. So you may find other information online about these things. I'm not saying that that's not true. I only speak from my experience. I don't like to read things and just, repeat that back. If I've seen it and felt it, then I'll say, yes, this is what I know to be true. So that's cords for this lifetime. And then what I've seen coming up quite a bit in this pandemic is cords that tie us to past lives. And these have come up, just one after another in sessions. And I've been meaning to make this video for a while because I had made a video about soul contracts and how those were showing up in the pandemic. There was this period of about 2 months where I had just one soul contract show up after another. And then that ended. And they all had cords, and those cords were connected at the heart center. So soul contract cords connect at the heart center. Cords of other types can connect at any of the chakras. And it is interesting to see where they're connecting, and of course, it is going to be related to the themes of that chakra. So I won't go into themes right now. That's another topic on its own, but just keep that in mind. So generally speaking, cords can connect us to people, or they can connect us to situations. So with past lives, a lot of times if it's connecting us to people, these are can be soul group connections. So soul groups are where groups of souls are reincarnating together and working through different relationship dynamics. That's one very common type. They can also connect us just to people that we had a strong experience with in a past life, a strong connection to, and sometimes that's through trauma, sometimes not. Sometimes it's a child who was lost, and the grief around that, and not being able to let that child go. That's one that has come up. And similar types of situations, traumas like that, where there was such a desire to be able to go back and fix or undo something that had been done. And it's that desire that maintains the connection to the cord of the cord. And on that note, actually, that's something important to mention, is that really when these cords come up, the important thing to look at is what specific part, not the entire lifetime and not everything that happened, but what specific part of the situation or the trauma, the person and the connection to the person is the piece that's important, because also it's not the whole relationship. It's not the whole traumatic experience. It can be just one aspect. And then that aspect is the one that tends to carry through. So I'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. So getting back to what they can connect us to. So they connect us to people. They also connect us to situations. So like I was just saying, it can be traumas. And in the situation where I had this client who was connected to a child that had been lost, the connection was really to the child, not to the trauma itself. Whereas in other cords, you can actually have a cord that connects you back to a moment of loss, a moment of extreme shock or devastation. And then we want to look specifically at what aspect of that is the aspect that's coming through. It might be the moment of shock. It might be the loss itself. It might be being left alone, having to fend for yourself, feeling very alone in the world. And then that would be the piece that carries through into this life. Some other things are unfulfilled desires in other lifetimes. So if there was a really strong desire to do something or create something or to be something, and that wasn't fulfilled, then that desire can carry through. And it can also carry through as a lack of fulfillment, as something that's still missing, or a desire, let's see, not a desire, but always feeling like you're working towards something, but not ever getting there. So that could be the aspect that comes through. I have found cords that connected people to happy times, to really happy memories. And in those situations, one in particular comes to mind where someone was just so happy with her life in this other lifetime and her identity in the other lifetime, that in this lifetime, that cord was keeping her from fully developing her identity now and really being able to be present and fully bring in who she is and what she came to do in this life, what she came to express in this life. Another interesting thing that I've seen is where people can be carrying the emotional load of another person, another soul from a different lifetime. And the way that that shows up or manifests in this life could be as an emotion that they've always felt, but can't figure out why it's there or where it comes from. It can also be, it can also manifest as a physical problem. I had one woman, for example, who had a thyroid problem, and it was something that was very manageable. It really hasn't caused her a lot of trouble. You know, she takes a medication. She's had it for years. It was kind of like a non-issue, actually. And when we went into the chakra and we were working on the fifth chakra, what came up was that this thyroid problem was related to a block that was in there, and that this block was actually emotion that she had taken on and said, essentially said to this other soul, let me carry that for you in this next life. So kind of a beautiful thing, and I think that it's really interesting how it manifested in that it didn't become an actual problem for her. It was very much easily overcome. It's kind of part of life and no big deal. So how do these cords manifest? Well, I talked a little bit about looking for the specific piece or the specific theme of what's coming through in this life that is connecting you back to that one. And what we find a lot of times is that it isn't always exact. It's not going to be an exact mirror of the past life situation. And the theme can carry through into the current lifetime and then also manifest in a very different way, a significantly different way. So sometimes these things, these chords, can really, set a course for your life. It can set a course for belief systems, perceptions, health problems, whether they're physical or emotional, mental health. And I would also say behavioral patterns, because those can come out of beliefs and patterns that were established in another lifetime. So if you find that you've got some patterns that just seem so deep, and maybe you've worked on them and worked on them and worked on them, and you just can't get to the bottom of them, you can't figure out why they're still there, you can't figure out how to get rid of them, you may have some cords around those. So cords can relate to the big picture of a situation, how that situation has developed, how it's set up, sort of how it's defined in your life. And then they can also relate to the emotional undercurrents. And it can be either or, it can be both. So those are ways to look for them. And if you think you may have some cords, there is something that you can do, and that is to use your intention to release them. And you may want to do this more than one time. A good time to do these things with intention, I've said before, is at night when you're going to sleep. So you're kind of setting it in on a deep level. As you're drifting off to sleep, you can just repeat something like, I release all cords that tie me to the past. And if you think you know, for example, in this lifetime, of a person that you need to disconnect from or a situation that you need to disconnect from, you can be more specific and use that specific intention. If you're working on something that feels like one of these sort of mysterious issues that you've always had and can't quite get to the bottom of, you can use that intention as well and really be specific about those emotions or behavioral patterns or situations in your life. Thank you for joining me today. Again, I'm Paige Apgar, Eden Energy Medicine Advanced Practitioner. I have a practice in Tallahassee and online. I do distance sessions, and you're welcome to get in touch with me. My website is soulslightenergyhealing.com. You'll find a lot more information there about what I do and find more videos. You can also find some more of my videos on my Facebook page and on my YouTube channel. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.